It was a bright afternoon when Zelda Munro, an elderly woman in her 60s, received a strange call on her phone. Wait, who could be calling her from an unknown number? The unfamiliar number made her squint suspiciously at the screen before she answered with a cautious voice. "Hello, who is this?" she asked. "Is this Miss Zelda Munro?" asked a man on the other end, his tone serious. "Yes, I'm Zelda." "Who is this? And why do you have Pearl's phone?" she asked, suddenly growing worried. "I'm a doctor," the man replied gently. "We found your number as the emergency contact in Miss Pearl's phone. She's currently here at the hospital." Zelda's eyes widened in alarm. "Which hospital?" she demanded. As soon as she got the details, Zelda didn't waste a second. She quickly changed into outdoor clothes and rushed out of her small home in Springfield, the neighborhood where her granddaughter Pearl lived. But what happened to Pearl that landed her in the hospital? Stay tuned to Dark Voices to find out. "Miss Zelda, where are you going?" asked Iris, a sweet 5-year-old girl with pigtails and curious eyes. Her two brothers, Ian and Ivan, stood quietly behind her, their small hands clutching onto each other. "I'm going to see your mom," Zelda replied, gently patting Iris's head. "You three stay here and don't go anywhere, okay? Can't we come with you, Miss Zelda?" Ian asked, pouting slightly. Zelda sighed and crouched down to look the kids in the eyes. "Not this time, sweethearts. Ivan, take care of your siblings. Don't leave the house. I'll be back as soon as I see your mom." With that, she rushed out the door, leaving the three kids standing in the middle of the living room. They looked at each other in confusion. "Why is she in such a hurry?" Iris asked, her brows furrowed. "Do you think something happened to Mom?" Ian asked, his voice trembling. "Don't cry, Ian," Ivan said calmly, stepping forward as the most composed of the trio. "Maybe she just had to go somewhere important." "But Ivan, I'm hungry," Iris whined. "Maybe we should follow Miss Zelda." "What if someone takes us outside, Iris?" "That's scary," Ian whispered, hugging himself. "Why would we be scared?" "There are 3 of us," Iris said boldly. "Stop scaring Ian," Ivan scolded. "Look, he's crying again." "I don't care. If you don't want to come, I'll go alone." Iris huffed and stomped toward the door. "Iris, wait!" Ian shouted, chasing after her. Ivan groaned, grabbed the house keys, and locked the door before running after his siblings. The 3 children held hands tightly as they stepped out onto the sidewalk. "Where are we even going?" Ivan asked nervously, looking around the unfamiliar streets. "I don't know," Iris admitted. "But this place is creepy. Let's go where the lights are." "No, it's dark over there." "What if a ghost takes us?" Ian wailed. "Gh. Ian, stop crying," Ivan said, trying to sound brave. "We're 5 now. We shouldn't cry." He looked at the roads around them, thinking hard about which way to go. Eventually, the trio found themselves on a busy highway, surrounded by tall buildings and the sound of honking cars. "Wow, look at those buildings and all the lights." Iris gasped. "Where are we now?" "I don't know, but at least it's not dark," Ian said sadly. "I miss Mom, and I'm hungry." "Let's sit over there and wait for the police," Ivan suggested, pointing toward a staircase near a plaza. "Why the police?" Iris asked, frowning. "Mom said, police officers are nice. Maybe they can help us," Ivan explained. The 3 sat on the stairs, quietly watching cars pass by. Their clothes were dusty, their little faces tired. Suddenly, a black SUV pulled up nearby. The driver, a man in his late 20s with sharp features and a business suit, peered at them through the window. "Kurt, pull over," the man said to his driver. When he confirmed that the figures on the stairs were indeed children, he stepped out of the car and approached them. "Hi there," he said kindly. "What are you kids doing out here? Where's your mom?" Ian and Iris moved closer to Ivan, who instinctively stepped in front of them. "We don't know. We're just waiting for the police," Iris answered with a hesitant smile. Why are you waiting for the police? The man asked, kneeling down. Sorry, but our mom said we're not supposed to talk to strangers, Ivan said firmly, still shielding his siblings. The man blinked in surprise, but smiled at Ivan's protective nature. Ivan, maybe we should ask for help, Ian whispered. No, we don't know him, Ivan insisted. But he looks nice, Iris chimed in. Fine, Ivan muttered, but only for help. The man laughed softly. You don't have to worry. I won't hurt you. I just want to help. I'm Kyle. What are your names? We're lost and we don't know where our mom is. That's the truth, Ivan said bravely. Come on, get in my car. I'll take you to the police station, Kyle offered with a warm smile. Really? Iris asked, eyes wide with excitement. Come on, Ivan. He said he knows the police, Ian begged. Though Ivan didn't lower his guard, Iris and Ian were already charmed. Kyle lifted the two younger kids in his arms while Ivan walked beside them, still wary, but slowly softening. As Kyle carried the twins, he couldn't help but wonder, could someone ever care for these children as deeply as he suddenly did? It took just a few minutes before Kyle arrived at the nearest police station. The twins Ian and Iris, already asleep in his car. Ivan, still wide awake, sat quietly in the back seat, watching over his siblings. Come with me inside, Ivan, Kyle said gently as he parked the car. Let's leave your brother and sister here with my driver while we talk to the officers. Holding Ivan's small hand, Kyle led him into the station and explained everything to the officer on duty. He asked for help locating the children's mother, leaving behind all the contact information they had found on Pearl's phone. Kyle looked down at Ivan. Is it okay if the police help us find your mom? Ivan, still holding Kyle's hand tightly, nodded with a pout and a shy expression. Kyle smiled down at him before turning back to the officer. With the children now in safe hands, Kyle decided to grab them some food while the police did their part. The kids' eyes lit up when they saw the meals laid out in front of them. They didn't waste any time. They dove into the food eagerly. Take it easy. You don't want to get a stomachache, Kyle said, amused by their enthusiasm. This is so good, Ian said with a big grin. I've never had food like this before, Iris added, her cheeks full. It's good, but Mom's cooking is still better, Ivan said gruffly, though his expression betrayed how much he was enjoying the meal. Kyle chuckled. He didn't understand why, but something about these children felt so right, like they belonged there with him. His heart was full in a way he hadn't felt in years. Before heading home, Kyle stopped by a department store and bought them clothes and other essentials. As he looked over the pile of shopping bags being loaded into his car, he scratched his head. Did I buy too much? He muttered to himself. You almost bought the whole store, sir, joked Kurt, his driver. Kyle just laughed it off, then got into the car. He smiled when he saw the triplets sleeping peacefully in the back seat. He couldn't help but place his hand over his chest, feeling a strange warmth stir inside. When they arrived at his home, a large estate in a quiet part of town, the children's jaws dropped. Your house is huge, Ian murmured sleepily as Kyle carried him. Don't be shy. I bought you pajamas, too. Just give me a moment to set up your room, Kyle said cheerfully. He called on his house staff to take care of the children. The elderly maids, upon seeing the cute triplets, were overjoyed and quickly got to work preparing the room across from Kyle's own. The beds were adjusted to their size, and everything was tailored for young kids. After making sure they were safe and comfortable, Kyle went to his own room to shower. When he returned, the kids were already asleep, except for Ivan. Kyle invited him to the living room where a maid served them milk and coffee. Why aren't you sleeping? Kyle asked gently. I'm just thinking about my mom and Miss Zelda. They're probably really worried, Ivan said, his voice small. Don't worry. Once they talk to the police, they'll call me right away, Kyle reassured him. Are you here all by yourself? Ivan asked curiously. Yeah, it's just me in this big house, Kyle said with a smile. Don't you get lonely? Ivan asked innocently, catching Kyle off guard. He didn't expect such a question from a 5-year-old. Do you dream of having a big house like this, too? Kyle asked, trying to change the subject. I don't care about that as long as we're all together, Ivan replied, bowing his head as tears welled in his eyes. Don't cry, Kyle said, handing him the glass of milk. We'll go back to the station tomorrow for news about your mom. I'm not crying. Something just got in my eye, Ivan mumbled, clearly embarrassed. You're still a baby? Kyle teased with a grin. I'm not. Ian's the crybaby and Iris is the troublemaker, Ivan declared proudly. Is that so? Here, have some milk, Kyle said, handing him the glass. Ivan's eyes sparkled as he took a sip. This is really good. It tastes different than usual. See, total baby, Kyle teased again. Ivan pouted, clearly embarrassed. Kyle laughed and the two continued chatting until Ivan finally dozed off. Kyle gently carried him back to the room with the others and watched them sleep, his heart feeling lighter than it had in years. Even though they had only met the day before, Kyle felt deeply connected to the children, attached in a way he couldn't explain, and he had no idea that the feeling was mutual. 3 days had passed when Kyle finally received a call from the police. Zelda arrived at the station in tears the moment she saw the children. Thank God you're safe. You three are such troublemakers, Zelda sobbed. I told you to wait for me and I'd be back soon. I'm sorry, Miss Zelda, Iris said, her lip trembling. I just begged them to come look for you. Zelda, where's Mom? Ivan asked, his voice low with worry. Yeah, why isn't she with you? Ian added, eyes wide with concern. Your mom is still in the hospital. She hasn't woken up yet, Zelda said softly. Come on, let's go home. We'll visit her together. The triplets looked at Kyle, unsure. Ivan shyly leaned into Kyle's arms. It's okay, Kyle whispered. He looked at Zelda. May I ask where you live so I can come visit the kids? Iris ran over and raised her arms, asking to be carried, too. Even Ian didn't want to let go of Kyle. What's going on? Zelda asked, puzzled. Can't we stay with him, Miss Zelda? Ivan asked, his eyes pleading. Since Mom's still in the hospital, he can take care of us. No, sweetie. We can't impose like that, Zelda said gently. He's not even family. But he's not a bad person, Ivan whispered. He's just like you, Miss Zelda. Please, Miss Zelda. Please, Iris begged. Please, Mr. Kyle. Kyle tried to speak with Zelda, but the children were already crying so hard. Zelda had no choice but to give in. The triplets hugged Kyle tightly, and he returned the embrace, thankful for the extra time he would get with them. Thank you, Mrs. Zelda. If it's all right with you, I'd like to go with you to visit their mother, Kyle asked kindly. Oh, of course, dear. You've done so much already. I should be the one thanking you, Zelda said with a warm smile. During the ride to the hospital, the triplets excitedly told Zelda about their time with Kyle, their faces glowing with joy. Zelda was touched. It was clear how happy the children had been at the hospital. The moment they saw their mother lying unconscious in bed, the triplets broke down. Kyle comforted them, gently brushing away their tears. The doctor explained, she's suffering from extreme fatigue. I've told her before to rest, even just for a day. But she never listened. She collapsed from exhaustion and hit her head. Thankfully, the injury isn't too severe. Is she raising the triplets all on her own? Kyle asked. Yes, Zelda replied. She's been through a lot. And honestly, I'm not in the position to share her story. Kyle didn't respond. He couldn't shake the feeling that Pearl's face looked strangely familiar, though he couldn't recall where he had seen her before. His thoughts were interrupted when he noticed Zelda watching him closely. Is something wrong? He asked. Oh, no, not at all. It's just you really resemble the children, especially Ivan. If someone saw you together, they'd think you were their father, she said with a chuckle. Kyle smiled faintly. The idea felt impossible, yet strangely heartwarming. In the short time he'd spent with the children, he had grown to care for them deeply. What he didn't realize was that the children had become just as attached to him. From that day on, Kyle made the kids part of his daily life, even bringing them to his office. He felt more energized than ever. Every time he looked up from his desk and saw the triplets playing nearby, he felt stronger, more focused. After work, Kyle would always bring the triplets to visit their mother. Zelda, meanwhile, remained by Pearl's side, watching over her every day. Then, one afternoon, Pearl finally opened her eyes. "Thank God you're awake," Zelda said, crying. "Do you remember me?" "Miss Zelda, where are the kids?" Pearl asked weakly. Zelda told her everything. Pearl was stunned, then broke into tears. Kyle arrived soon after with food. The kids went silent as they stepped into the room and saw their mother smiling from her hospital bed. "Mom," Iris whispered. "My beautiful babies, you look so handsome and pretty," Pearl said softly. The children burst into tears and ran into her arms. "Mom, you were asleep for so long," Ivan cried. "Why did you only wake up now?" Iris sobbed. Ian held on to her tightly, refusing to let go. "I'm so sorry, my loves," Pearl whispered. "I promise it won't happen again." When the kids had finally calmed down, Kyle stepped forward. "Hi, I'm Kyle," he said with a gentle smile. Pearl immediately thanked him for taking care of her children. "No need to thank me. They're good kids," Kyle replied. "Actually, I should be the one thanking you. They brought life back into my home." But deep down, Kyle felt a pang of sadness. He knew the kids would soon be leaving him. Pearl smiled softly at his words. The two adults stood side by side, watching the children play and tease each other on the hospital bed. Kyle couldn't shake the feeling that Pearl's face and voice were familiar. Then he saw it, a small tattoo just behind her ear. His eyes widened. That tattoo, he remembered it vividly. It belonged to the woman from the night he'd never forgotten. The woman he had spent a drunken, hazy night with years ago. "Mr. Kyle, is something wrong?" Pearl asked, puzzled. "Oh, no. I was just wondering if I could ask you something," Kyle said hesitantly, unable to tear his eyes away from her tattoo. "Sure, ask me anything. Just please don't offer money." "We don't have any," Pearl joked with a smile. Kyle chuckled softly. "It's not that. I just wanted to know. What do you do for work?" "I'm just a cleaning lady," Pearl answered quietly. "I'd like to offer you a job. Maybe even live with us so you don't have to leave the kids." "You can work for me in any role you're comfortable with," Kyle said, trying to sound casual. "Are you serious?" Pearl asked, completely stunned. "I pay well, and the job won't be too heavy. My maids are all older now, and you'd be a huge help to them." "You've already done too much, Mr. Kyle," Pearl replied. "Honestly, I've grown attached to the kids, too. I don't know how I'd bear being away from them again." Kyle didn't respond. He looked down, trying to hide his expression. Pearl gazed at him, a strange warmth blooming in her chest. The man she had once thought arrogant and entitled had turned out to be kind and caring. She smiled, her heart beginning to open. When Pearl was finally discharged from the hospital, she was shocked to see the room prepared for the triplets and the care shown by Kyle's house staff. It felt as if she had stepped into a movie. The staff treated her children like royalty, and even she couldn't help but feel like she had returned to a life she once knew. After dinner, Pearl visited Kyle's home office to speak with him. "Mr. Kyle," she said hesitantly, standing at the doorway. Kyle looked up from a stack of documents. "Pearl, everything okay?" "I just wanted to ask what kind of work I'll be doing so I can start tomorrow," she said, looking down with embarrassment. "You just got out of the hospital. Don't worry about work right now." "Have the kids shown you your room?" he asked with a warm smile. "I really want to help out," she said. But Kyle interrupted her gently. "The doctor told me what happened. You fainted from malnutrition and over-fatigue. Your kids were so worried about you. For now, your only job is to rest, recover, and spend time with them. They missed you so much. Make the most of this time." Pearl's eyes widened at Kyle's sincere words. Then slowly, her lips curled into a smile. She felt a flicker of wholeness again, something she hadn't felt in years. From the time she became pregnant with the triplets, she had worked non-stop. Even with a college degree, she couldn't land a job. All thanks to her vindictive stepsister, Eve, who ruined her reputation. "Thank you so much, Mr. Kyle. Someday I hope I can repay your kindness," Pearl said softly. "Just Kyle," he replied with a smile. "I'll get some rest now, Kyle." "You should too," Pearl said before walking off. She peeked into the children's room and smiled at the sight of the three sleeping peacefully. She carefully climbed into bed, squeezing herself into the tangled limbs of the children just to be close to them. Later that night, after finishing his work, Kyle checked on the kids like he always did. Seeing Pearl sleeping beside them made him smile, but something caught his attention. That tattoo behind her ear. He stared at it, frozen, then quietly left the room and called his assistant to begin an investigation into Pearl's background. Kyle was disappointed when the only thing his assistant could find was that she used to be wealthy. Nothing else. The lack of information only deepened his curiosity. He couldn't let it go. One day, Eve stormed into Kyle's office. "So, I heard you've taken in some street kids," she said snidely. "It's a long story, Eve." "Not now." "I'm busy," Kyle replied, not even looking up. "Kyle, we've been engaged for 5 years, and our relationship hasn't moved an inch," Eve snapped. Kyle stiffened. He tried to recall that one night years ago, the one that had changed everything. The night when he woke up beside a stranger. All he remembered was a tattoo just like Pearl's. "Let's not talk about this now." "I'm really busy," he said, avoiding her eyes. "But you have time for those brats," Eve hissed. "Throw them out of your house. For all you know, they're little thieves." That was it. Kyle's temper flared. "Leave and don't come back until I say so," he said, his voice low and cold. Eve scoffed. "You're acting like you're their father. Anyone watching would think they're your kids." Kyle said nothing. He just glared at her. Eve's voice softened in a pathetic attempt to gain sympathy. "You told me you'd take responsibility for what happened that night, but now you're treating me like a desperate woman." Kyle sighed and closed his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "If you really mean that, then let's start planning the wedding," Eve said. Kyle nodded silently. He didn't want to argue anymore. After she left, he slumped into his chair, eyes blank. All he could see in his mind was the laughter of the triplets and the smile of Pearl. "I want to go home," he muttered. When Kyle arrived home, he found Pearl and the triplets laughing and playing in the living room. It made his heart swell. Pearl looked happier and healthier now, and she laughed openly, surrounded by love and joy. While waiting for dinner, Kyle returned to his office. Pearl knocked and peeked in. "Are you working again?" she teased. "Pearl," Kyle said with a smile. "Enjoy your rest. I'm still figuring out the perfect job for you." "You're really not going to let me help?" She pouted. "Nope. You're not a freeloader, but you are on doctor's orders." Pearl blushed. "I'm not trying to be cute." "Okay. You don't have to try." "You're already beautiful," Kyle teased. Pearl was stunned. "Beautiful me?" Kyle looked away shyly and Pearl grinned. "So, you think I'm beautiful?" She teased. "I didn't say that," Kyle mumbled. "You did." She laughed, stepping closer. "You're skinny like a skeleton," Kyle said, trying to joke his way out of it. Pearl laughed even harder. "Really now? Then why can't you look me in the eye?" Kyle turned his head to prove he could, only to find her face inches from his. Both were startled. Pearl's eyes dropped to his lips and her heart raced. "You look like a lion about to eat me," she whispered. Kyle chuckled. "Am I that scary?" She pushed him away playfully. "Cut it out. I think I hear the kids calling for dinner," she said, bolting from the office. Kyle smiled until he noticed a sealed envelope on his desk, the results of a DNA test comparing his and the triplets' hair. He had suspected it, and yet he couldn't bring himself to look. "Mama, why do we look like Mr. Kyle?" Ian asked innocently as Pearl set the table. Pearl paused, burrowing her brows. "Look like Mr. Kyle? You all look more like me than anyone else." Without another word, Iris dashed out of the kitchen and brushed right past Kyle in the hallway. "Where's she going?" Kyle asked, puzzled. "Ian asked me something weird, and I dismissed it." "I think that upset her," Pearl replied, slightly worried. Moments later, Iris returned, clutching a large photo album. Kyle recognized it instantly. "Where'd you get that?" he asked, surprised. "Ms. Martha showed it to us. It has pictures of Mr. Kyle when he was a kid. He looks just like us, Mama." "Look," Ian said, eyes gleaming. Pearl and Kyle exchanged glances. She shrugged and sat down to look at the pictures. Iris excitedly flipped through the pages. "Look, this one looks like Ivan. And here, this one is me. And Ian looks just like this one." "All of them look like Mr. Kyle," Iris exclaimed. Pearl smiled awkwardly. "Maybe Mr. Kyle knows your dad." "That could explain it," she said, subtly signaling Kyle to go along with it. Kyle forced a smile, but deep down, suspicion surged stronger than ever. What if? Later that night, Pearl stood quietly on the balcony, staring out into the distance. Kyle approached, an envelope in hand. "What's that?" Pearl asked curiously. "I hope you're not upset, but I had our DNA tested, the kids and mine," Kyle admitted nervously. "What did it say?" Pearl asked, her heart pounding. "I haven't opened it yet." "Why not?" she asked confused. "I'm scared," Kyle confessed. "What if?" Pearl gently took the envelope from his hand and tore it open. Her eyes scanned the page and then widened. She gasped, staring at Kyle in disbelief. Kyle, seeing her expression, snatched the paper and read it himself. He froze, breath catching in his throat. "It's you," he whispered. "You're the woman I've been searching for." Pearl's voice cracked. "You? You're the guy from that night." Memories flooded back to both of them, fleeting images from a drunken, hazy night. Kyle blushed as one particular moment resurfaced. "What are you thinking about?" Pearl asked, catching his expression. "Nothing," Kyle stammered. "Nothing at all." "Right," Pearl said, unconvinced. "Anyway," Kyle continued, collecting himself. "If I'm the kid's father, then I have every right to be with them. You don't need any more reason to stay here." "Tell me what happened that night," Pearl said. "Seriously. I honestly don't remember much. I was drunk, completely gone. All I remember is what happened between us, but not your face. Everything was blurry except that tattoo behind your ear. I remember waking up and seeing it. But when I turned around, you were gone and Eve was there instead. I thought it was her all this time." Pearl looked away, her voice quiet. "Why were you even looking for me?" "Because I wanted to take responsibility." "I remember the blood." "I knew it was your first time," Kyle said, his voice cracking. Pearl was stunned. The man she had always heard was arrogant and selfish turned out to be nothing like the rumors. He was kind, responsible. "I'm glad you're their father," she said with a soft smile. They accepted the truth, but that night both lay in bed filled with conflicting emotions. Kyle was furious at Eve. He needed to know the whole truth. Pearl, meanwhile, stared at the night sky from her bedroom window, wondering how fate had brought the triplets and their real father together. She remembered waking up alone that night, sore and dizzy, her sister Eve barging in soon after. Eve had orchestrated the entire setup. Once Kyle learned the truth, he doubled down on investigating Eve and everything about that night. He even publicly introduced the triplets as his own children. "I don't want to waste any more time. I want the world to know they're mine," he said calmly. "Why are you sad, Dad?" Ian asked, tilting his head. Ivan and Iris looked up from the floor, also concerned. "Do you have a problem, Daddy?" Ivan asked. Don't be sad, Daddy. We're here with you, Iris said sweetly. The triplets rushed to hug Kyle, who couldn't hold back his tears. He laughed and cried at the same time, overwhelmed with joy. I'm not sad. I'm happy, Kyle told them. So happy. I'm your father and I'm grateful every day that I found you. The kids didn't speak. Ian and Iris clung to Ivan. All three overwhelmed. Kyle opened his arms wide. Can I hug you now as your dad? He asked. The moment the word dad left his lips, the children ran into his embrace, crying as they called him Daddy. Pearl, watching from the hallway, wiped a tear from her eye. At last, the triplets had found the father they never knew. Kyle started taking the children everywhere. Even when he visited his office, Pearl, despite insisting she wanted to work, was told by Kyle to focus on her recovery. The truth was, he simply wanted Pearl to enjoy life for once. He knew how hard it was to raise children, let alone triplets, all by herself. News of the situation spread quickly. Eventually, Eve heard and stormed into Kyle's office. She frowned deeply when she saw the children inside. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. Who are you? Iris asked curiously. Daddy's not here. He said he has a meeting. Ivan answered kindly. Are you our dad's friend? Ian asked shyly. Your dad? Who's your dad? Eve snapped, her voice rising. She grabbed one of the children's wrists, rage brimming in her eyes. Tell me who your father is, she demanded. Ivan immediately pulled Ian behind him to protect him. We'll tell our dad about you, he cried. You're in big trouble now. Iris screamed, hugging Ian tightly from behind. You don't have a father. Kyle told me you're just kids he's taking care of. Nothing more than that. He doesn't need to be playing house with children that aren't his. Eve spat disgustedly. Just then, Kyle walked into the room. What's going on here? He asked, alarmed. The moment the triplets saw him, they burst into tears. Daddy! Ivan wailed, shielding his siblings from Eve. Kyle ran to them immediately. The children jumped into his arms, sobbing. Screaming. Kyle's blood boiled when his eyes saw a red eye mark on the Ian's hand. He demanded, What did you do? He demanded, his voice low and furious. I just asked Kyle, we're getting married soon, and now you've brought random children into our lives, Eve retorted. They're mine children, Kyle said loudly. My blood runs through their veins, Eve gasped. She realized she had made a grave mistake. Trembling, she tried to apologize. I didn't know anything. I was sorry, I was just stressed. I haven't seen you in days for days. And then I heard all these rumors about kids. I didn't know anything. I don't care what your excuses are for. I'm warning you. Linda warned. Don't you lay a hand on my children's again. And I don't ever want to see you. Don't lay a hand on my children again, Ian, or, he warned me coldly. I'm so sorry, Kyle apologized, she whispered softly. Please don't do this to me, please. Let me make it up to you. Let's continue planning the wedding plans. Please. I need time to think, Kyle said firmly. Actually, no. I'm calling off the engagement is off. Eve's face drained of color. No, Kyle. I can't let this happen to me. I've waited so long for you. I'll do anything for you. Don't leave me, don't, she begged, trying to appear soft and helpless. Kyle sighed heavily. As long as my children don't feel safe around you, there's no place for you in my life anymore. Pearl was furious when she learned what Eve had done to her kids. She what? She scared the kids and hurt Ian? I'm sorry, Kyle said, sincerely apologized. I didn't think she would go that far. It's not your fault, but if mine truly yours, I assure you. If it happens again, I won't hold back either. Fiancé or not, fiancé, I won't let anybody hurt anyone. Lay a hand on my children, Pearl, she said fiercely, her eyes locked onto Kyle's eyes. That night, Kyle leaned against a wall, sighed deep and thought deeply. Sometimes, I wonder, he sighed, sometimes I wonder if she was ever really the one woman I wanted to spend my life with my whole life, he muttered softly to himself. What do you mean by that? Pearl asked, noticing his troubled expression on his face. Nothing. It doesn't matter anymore, Kyle replied, smiling faintly at her. From that day forward point on, Kyle kept the children away from the office away. He knew he'd be too busy again, and didn't want him to risk a repeat of what had happened with Eve again. But Eve, consumed by the fear of losing him, Kyle made a desperate move. She showed up at his home uninvited. The triplets were playing happily when she barged into the house in. The children froze in fear place, holding hands tightly together. Where's your dad? She asked sweetly, her voice dripping with false sweetness trying to sound sweet. He's at work today, Ivan replied nervously. I just came from behind his office just now. He's not even there. He's lying, Eve said sharply, her voice sharpening. Don't you hide him from me. We've already made up already. I'll soon be your mom soon. We already have a mom already, Iris said firmly, backing away slowly. You can't be our mother, you can't. Eve's lip curled in anger, and in a flash of rage angry, she grabbed one of the kids by the arm. Kids. No. Where is he? I yelled, I demanded, where's your dad? Whether you like it or not, I'm going to be your mother. We're getting married soon, . Terrified with fear, Iris burst into tears bursting from her eyes. Ivan tried to pull his sibling free from her grip, shouting loudly, I won't let go of him, . Downstairs Pearl heard all the noise commotion, shouting yelling. She rushed upstairs, saw the terrifying scene what was happening, and shoved Eve away from her kids the children. Are you okay? Pearl asked quickly, checking on her kids quickly. Mom, that the scary woman came back again. Ian wailed, clinging to her. She said she's going to be our mom. She said I don't want her to be our mom, Iris cried, her voice trembling with fear. My hands hurt so much, Mom. She grabbed my hand so hard, Ivan added, tears streaming down his face. Pearl turned to face Eve with fury, her face burning with anger. You growled fiercely, Pearl growled. What are you doing here? Eve froze, her eyes darting nervously around the room. You stammered, you work here? You're the one who hurt my children, my kids, and you're the one who's Kyle's fiancé? You're angry because of that night? You're upset about that night? Eve snapped back defensively. Is that what this is all about? You stole my father's company from us. You ruined my reputation completely. I couldn't get a job anywhere because of you, anywhere, and now you're hurting my kids. My Pearl screamed furiously at her, her voice shaking with anger at Eve. No! She yelled, I won't let this happen. She lunged forward at Pearl, Eve lunged, but I was Pearl ready for her. I shoved her, she pushed Eve back again hard, standing her ground. A staff member quickly called for security shouting, informing them that someone had forced their way into the house in. Kyle arrived just in time to see the chaos, pulling Eve away from her Pearl with force. The kids were screaming, he asked, what the hell happened here, he demanded, his voice filled with alarm. The triplets rushed into his arms immediately, crying, screaming hysterically. She said she's going to be our mom. I don't want her, Iris sobbed, her voice breaking with fear. She scared us so bad, Dad, Ian wailed, trembling in his arms. Kyle turned to face Eve, his face expression cold as ice and furious. You hurt my kids again. They're crying, You think I just wanted to talk? Talk? Do you think they'd be crying like this if that's all you did? That was all, he snapped sharply at her, his voice shaking with rage. He called for security immediately, shouting for security. You can't do this to me, Kyle, she pleaded, begging him to stop. After everything we've been through together, you hurt my children, kids. It's over. Done, he yelled back, his voice unwavering with finality. Why did you even let her get near us? Ivan asked through his tears, his voice trembling with fear. You're right, son, Kyle admitted softly, his voice softening with guilt. She won't ever come near you again, I promise, he promised them firmly, holding his children tightly in his arms. Then he turned to went to Pearl, who was treating a painful scratch on her face from Eve's nails. Are you okay all right? He asked softly, his voice filled with worry concerned. I'm fine, she muttered replied, wincing slightly, just a long painful scratch from those claws of hers. Here, let me clean it up that for you, Kyle said gently, taking the first aid kit gently from her hands. I didn't know you and Eve knew about each other before, Pearl admitted said, still a bit shocked. After my mom passed away died, my dad was deeply depressed, I explained. He explained, he met her Eve's mom, married her, and adopted her Eve as his own. So, she's your adopted stepsister, she asked, her eyes widening in shock. So she's adopted? I nodded silently, confirming Kyle nodded. I can't believe it, she said. I can't believe someone like you ended up with someone like her, Pearl said, shaking her head in disbelief. I was drunk at a party that night, I admitted, his voice heavy with regret. I woke up next to a woman I didn't even look at her face. I never even saw her face clearly. I just went straight to the bathroom right away. When I came out, Eve was there waiting for me. Pearl frowned, her brows furrowing as she processed it. That same night, she said slowly, that night, Eve set me up to be with some random guy she'd paid off for. She drugged my drink and tried to ruin me completely. I ran away from him. I ended up in your room by mistake. When I woke up in the morning, you were already gone. And then I pulled Eve aside, met me right at the door. Kyle stared at her in shocked disbelief, his eyes wide as the pieces fell into place together. I wish I'd found you sooner, Pearl, I said, my voice trembling with regret emotion, Kyle said softly. He reached out to touch her, but she winced in pain from her scratch again, wincing in pain. Easy, she said, half laughing through the sting. I said it stings. Sorry, I apologized, flustered again, Kyle apologized quickly, flustered. Pearl giggled softly at his reaction. You look so serious right now, she teased, but you're kind of cute when you are, you know. I blushed, I said quickly, I am not, I shot back quickly, blushing. Kyle protested, his face reddening. You like me, don't you? You, she teased Pearl, her eyes twinkling with mischief. No, I don't know, maybe, I stammered, I said, completely flustered now, flustered and laughing. Pearl laughed again, her laughter filling the room with warmth. Kyle kept digging deeper into Eve's past, investigating Eve further, determined to uncover everything. Eventually, he found what he needed, enough evidence to confront her and make things right, helping her reclaim everything she'd lost to Eve. I finally gathered all the evidence I needed, he said. He exposed everything Eve had done publicly, and made the truth public for all to see. Her crimes quickly became the talk of the town, and all the documents were officially submitted for justice to the authorities. Why did you want to call me here? She asked, surprised by the sudden meeting. Pearl asked, surprised. Are you finally letting me start working now? She teased. Yes, I said with a grin, Kyle said with a grin. But I won't be your boss, though. Then what's the job, is it? And who's my boss then? She asked curiously, her eyes narrowing playfully. I handed her a thick heavy folder stuffed full of photos and documents detailing all of Eve's crimes against her. She gasped when she saw them, her hands trembling as she flipped through the pages. Pearl gasped, her hands shaking as she looked through them. All that's missing now is your decision now, I said gently, my voice soft but firm. Kyle said gently. So you really think I can get everything back? Everything my father left to me, she asked, her eyes glistening, watering with tears of hope. I nodded firmly, my eyes locked on hers. Kyle nodded firmly, his gaze unwavering. Overwhelmed with gratitude and emotion, she ran into my arms and hugged me tightly. Pearl ran into Kyle's arms, hugging him tightly. I hugged her back just as fiercely, holding her close. He hugged her back just as fiercely. Just then, the triplets ran into the room and stopped short when they saw their parents embracing each other. I want a hug too, Ian squealed, giggling with excitement. Pearl, flustered by the kids, turned her head to hide her blushing red face, flustered and blushing. She and I crouched down to hug the kids together, laughing along with them. Pearl and Kyle crouched down, hugging the kids, laughing together. I kissed each of the children on their foreheads lovingly, Kyle kissed each child on the forehead. "Daddy, why didn't you kiss Mommy too?" Ian asked innocently, confused. "Yeah, kiss her too," Iris pouted, her lips puckering dramatically. Iris said, pouting. "Come on, Dad," Ivan grinning playfully at his dad. Ivan added with a playful grin. Pearl turned toward me in surprise, just in time to catch me leaning in. Pearl turned to Kyle, surprised, just as he leaned in. I kissed her gently on the cheek, blushing deeply as I did. He kissed her cheek, his face blushing deeply. The kids gasped in delight with excitement, squealed with excitement. Pearl stepped back away flustered, her cheeks flushed, and I looked down, rubbing the back of my neck shyly. Pearl stepped back flustered, and Kyle rubbed his neck, shyly looking down. Just then, she said quickly, let's go downstairs, everyone. Mrs. Miz is calling us down for dinner," she called out hurriedly, hurrying out of the room. Pearl said quickly, rushing off. I grinned from ear to ear, my heart racing as I followed her, butterflies fluttering in my chest. Kyle followed with a wide grin, butterflies in his chest. She, still blushing softly, touched her cheek gently where I'd kissed her. Pearl, still blushing, touched her cheek where he'd kissed her. "Mommy, does your face hurt?" "Face hurting?" Ivan asked worriedly, concerned, looking up at her. "No, sweetie," she hesitated, smiling softly to herself. Pearl smiled warmly, hesitating. Eventually, Eve faced justice, was charged for everything she'd done to them. Pearl was surprised, but no longer hurt by it. She'd finally accepted that Eve would never change her ways. Pearl had accepted Eve would never change. Months passed by, and Pearl slowly revived her father's struggling company, which had nearly gone bankrupt under Eve's corrupt management, slowly rebuilding her father's company. I courted her during this time faithfully, visiting her office every day. Kyle courted her, visiting her office daily. Sometimes I'd bringing flowers, other times leaving sweet handwritten notes for her, sometimes leaving handwritten notes. "You're going to turn my office into a flower shop," she joked one day, laughing. Pearl joked one day. "Don't you want it to smell nice and fresh?" "Fresh," I replied smugly, grinning. Kyle replied smugly. "Plus, everyone here should know you're taken already," I added with a wink. He added playfully. She laughed brightly, her eyes sparkling. Pearl laughed, her eyes sparkling. "You're too much, Kyle. Come on, let's go. The kids are waiting for us," she said, pulling me along, she said, pulling him along. On days when we couldn't see each other, my love letters became the highlight of her day. Kyle's love letters brightened Pearl's days. She saved each one carefully, gluing dried flower petals to the pages and placing them in a special box, saving them in a box with flower petals. A year passed by. We could have become a couple sooner, but we'd both agreed to take things slow to be sure, taking things slowly to be sure. "You sure?" "Sure," I asked in disbelief one day, my eyes wide. Kyle asked, shocked. She burst into laughter at my face, laughing at his expression. Pearl burst out laughing. "I'm sure, Kyle. I love you. I know I won't regret this. You've given me and the kids so much love," she said warmly, her eyes shining. Pearl said, her eyes shining. And so, we stopped the courtship and officially became a couple, becoming a couple. Our love grew deeper by the day every day, growing deeper daily. Eventually, I proposed to her, and we didn't waste any time planning the wedding. Kyle proposed, and they planned the wedding. On the day of a special surprise, she gathered me and the kids together. Pearl gathered Kyle and the kids. "What's the surprise, Mom?" "Surprise?" Ian asked excitedly, bouncing with excitement. Ian asked excitedly. "I hope it's a giant fire truck," Ivan said, crossing his fingers hopefully. Ivan said, crossing his fingers. "Or a talking Barbie," Iris chimed in eagerly. Iris chimed in. "Or Dr. Toys, please," Ian added hopefully. "When I count to 3, open your gifts," she said cheerfully, her voice bright. Pearl said cheerfully. As they tore open the boxes eagerly, I gasped and clutched my chest in shock. Kyle gasped, clutching his chest. Inside were tiny little baby clothes, tiny baby clothes. The kids stared in confusion, puzzled. "Mom, these won't fit us." "Us," Iris said, frowning in confusion. Iris said, frowning. "Why baby clothes?" "Clothes," Ian pouted. Ian added, pouting. "Wait, does this mean I'm going to be a big brother again?" Again, Ivan asked, his eyes widening with realization. Ivan asked, eyes wide. I stood up, pulled her into a tight hug, and sobbed into her shoulder. Kyle stood, hugging Pearl tightly, sobbing. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy," I whispered through my tears. Kyle whispered, tears streaming. She giggled softly, Pearl giggled. "Can I use your shirt to wipe my tears?" "Tears?" I asked jokingly, trying to lighten the mood. Kyle joked, laughing through tears. She smacked my arm playfully, laughing. Pearl smacked his arm, laughing. "You and your jokes." "Jokes," she said. "Daddy looks like the bad guy on TV." Crying and laughing at the same time, Iris giggled. Iris said, giggling. "He's crying again." "Again," Ian pointed out. Ian added, pointing. "Mom, what am I now?" "Now," Ivan asked excitedly, eager to know. Ivan asked with excitement. She smiled and nodded, confirming their new roles as big siblings. Pearl smiled, nodding. Iris squealed with joy and Ian jumped for joy excitedly. Iris squealed, and Ian jumped. At first, she'd been terrified when she learned she was pregnant again. Pearl had been scared of another pregnancy. But with her husband and their 3 children by her side, that fear quickly turned to excitement, turning to excitement. Only one worry remained in her mind. What if it was another set of triplets? Again, she worried. She went to regular checkups faithfully, and at 4 months, we got the news, attending regular checkups. "Twins," the doctor announced, said, smiling, the doctor said. "At least there's one less than last time." "Time," she groaned, half joking. Pearl groaned, laughing. "Triplets were enough, honey," I whispered.